It is Monday, July 14th, and it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau. Today on the show, we have a repeat guest for you, his fourth time on the program, and he's always fun to have because he is a great journalist who does a lot of original reporting that you simply won't see in a lot of mainstream outlets, but I find very valuable, and we have him here today to talk about two of those recent stories of his for you. His name is Jeremy Appel. He is my friend. He works and as a freelance journalist and self-publishes his work at readtheorchard.org, where you should be subscribed to him because I am subscribed and I find it very worth the money. And yes, it is my pleasure to have him back on the program again. Jeremy, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Good to be here. As always, it's hard to believe that this is my fourth appearance.
It is. It's your fourth time on my show, and I've been on your show, The Orchard Cast, 2 times. So I do owe you one or
Right.
two. I've unfortunately taken more than I've given. Not a great socialist ethos on my part.
Hey, that's fine. I'm okay with having a bit of a trade deficit. I don't record as often as you, so
True.
yeah. No, great to be here on your program.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us on a Monday, which is not usually when we do episodes, but sometimes we do episodes on Monday just to be fun. And
Well,
sorry.
it saves me from the existential dread I normally feel on Mondays. So
Yeah, I think we all have the Garfield attitude towards Mondays. Like it's you're never happy for the week to begin, but you're happy the closer you get to the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, one of the stories that you did recently that I really wanted to talk about was your coverage of the protests against at the not against specifically, but also the protests at the G7. And at the G7 comes with a bit of an asterisk on it because, as you reported, from June 15th to 17th, when G7 was in Kananaskis, the protests were corralled into very, very far away areas.
Yes, extremely far away, in a different municipality far away. This isn't the first time that's occurred. The G8, as it was at the time, was held in Kananaskis, I believe, in 2002.
Yeah, 2002 is what your piece said, and I know you said that there were very similar reasons for it allowing for isolation from the general public.
Yeah. I mean, they basically, it was much bigger deal in 2002 because it was at the height of the, anti globalization protests that sort of, culminated at the battle in Seattle, people came from all over the world. Now things are a bit different. I think a lot of activist types, particularly of the environmental sort, are more reluctant to just get on a plane and fly somewhere.
It's like I'm mostly a train guy on the continent. I'll only take a plane if I need to get over an ocean, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a good point. But as you know, our the networks of passenger rail
in Canada are bad. Well, especially in the West. I mean, there isn't even passenger rail to Calgary anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
But
it's Danielle Smith's one redeeming trait that she wants nice trains. We'll see if she does anything.
And, it just came out today that her husband was, for some reason, attending meetings with the people trying to get train built from Calgary to Banff, which maybe that's his autistic fascination.
I think no, it's hers. I think at one point she actually had a restaurant she owned and operated in an old train car. It's like I
Yeah, but it was actually her husband's restaurant, so
uh,
that
all fun
actually bolsters
team
my
effort.
argument.
Yeah,
'Cause I do
yeah,
think Danielle Smith is neurotypical.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but Dave Moretta could be autistic.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
Not
But
every
what
trained
now?
person is autistic. Just most of us. Just the
Yeah,
vast
I
majority
mean,
of us.
yeah,
Uh,
I mean, you know, power to him if he is, and
yeah,
he's just really interested in trains. I mean, it's not against the law
yeah.
for
If they could
the
focus on
trainer
that
to talk
and
about
not any of the other things they like doing, that would be great.
yeah, more trains, less book bans. That's
Yeah.
what I'm
But
getting
yeah,
at.
so like for the protests, there were four designated zones where they could be. Three of them were in Calgary and one was in Banff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So exactly. So Banff was the closest to where the world leaders were actually going to be.
But still about
Now,
40 kilometers away.
yeah. Now the RCMP claimed that at two of the spots in Calgary and one in Banff, there were going to be cameras feeding, sort of images and sounds from the protest to Kananaskis. I saw no indication of that. I
Yeah,
was at
big,
two of
well,
the
that's obvious
sites, so
bullshit. Like we don't
yeah,
even
yeah.
need to
I
dig.
mean,
We don't even need to dignify that with like taking the argument seriously. Like, no, none of the world's G7 leaders, or even their staff, are going to look at a live video feed of protesters if one even existed, which I doubt. Like,
well, exactly, and I make that point in my piece. It's
maybe they're
like,
looking
okay,
at the
even
security feed that the police are running. Like,
yeah, maybe the like cop helicopters that were flying over downtown Calgary, maybe they were taking like aerial footage. But yeah, I don't think Trump or Zelensky or Carney or Macron or hopefully not Modi are looking at footage of protesters, right?
yeah,
That's like literally the reason it's there in Kananaskis. Just they
right.
don't have to deal with that shit. They can just go about conspiring against the rest of the world and the general population in their countries without being bothered by, getting yelled at by some protesters.
Right. And
And
obviously, the
that makes
purpose of a
Kananaskis really the
protest is to
perfect place for
disrupt
it.
things. Like, that's
Yeah,
why
exactly.
protest happens. So, the police boasting that these contained zones would minimize protest and disruption is essentially saying we're going to violate the charter, but with enough of a glaze over it so that courts won't give a shit.
Yes, that's essentially correct. Right. Yeah, it was definitely I like that was their sort of charter, sort of, I guess, escape hatch. It's like, hey, we're sending footage to world leaders. We're surveilling
Yeah.
you a lot.
Right.
So
It reminds me
is
of like the
your
George Bush era when they had like those constitutional zones or whatever where people were allowed to protest, like in like a 5 square foot area.
Yeah, well, I remember when the Olympics were in Beijing in it must have been what, 2008 maybe. And we were told that China having these designated protest zones was an example of communist tyranny. Um, Now, I mean, the difference between these protest zones in China and them here is those are actually like expanding sort of the range of dissent that can be expressed in public
Yeah,
in
for
China, whereas
China,
these
that's
are
better than their
constraining it a bit.
average, and for us, this is worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, and I know you talked about embedding yourself with one of the protest marches in Calgary. You talked about how police blocked off a pedestrian street so that where there's no threat of disrupting car traffic, even so that protesters couldn't go through, and then protesters went back to City Hall, and then they went again once it was open. But you also mentioned one point protesters were assaulted by someone throwing rotten eggs, I don't know if they were rotten, but eggs off of like a rooftop.
Yeah, I don't know if they're rotten, but
I
someone
mean, the guy
and this
throwing
was
them was rotten.
early. Yeah. This was, early in the march. This was like maybe a couple blocks away from City Hall. As the protesters walked, I guess it would be north, I think, from City Hall. Yeah, someone on a rooftop, tossed some eggs. A few eggs. Cops didn't seem too concerned by that. Um, and that was, I think pretty classic Calgary, get off my lawn moment, where your lawn is the downtown core.
I was at a
And you
protest
probably
one
live.
time in Toronto, and someone threw. I don't know what was in it because I don't think it was a normal drink. I think there was some mixture of concrete, but they threw it at my head, and thankfully it was about half a foot too low. But it is really frustrating when like left wing causes police just stand by and laugh essentially while you get assaulted, but right wing causes they pull out the red carpet for him essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible that person throwing eggs was an off-duty cop. I mean, we saw that with the Freedom Convoy, right? Like tons of law enforcement connections, and the way they've been treated
Right.
they were treated for like blocking traffic and being disrupted versus how any Palestine protest is treated is quite a study in contrast.
Right, and like I feel no need to like speak about it in vague terms or deny that it's happening. Like it's very blatantly fucking obvious. Like that they're like if police do not want questions raised about why they are not treating left wingers the same way they treat right wingers, then they should do their job better. But on the other hand, this is the job they're being hired to do by those in power, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on one's degree of cynicism. Um,
On this podcast, the cynicism gets worse every week.
but yeah, I mean, um, yeah, but I mean, one could say that police officers' job is to disrupt, protest in favor of social change and sort of allow the far right to run wild, right? I mean, the job of police, as originally conceived, was to protect,
Yeah, it's
white people
like
property and
they originate out of things like the Pinkertons, like busting up unions. Like
yeah.
this idea that the police were ever originated as an institution or as like a social, as like a repeating framework in history has never been to protect the public. It's been to protect the powerful.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, nothing you've reported on the G7 here surprises me. It's disappointing, it's frustrating, but it's not surprising, and I guess in a way, I guess it isn't even disappointing because this is just what I expect. But I think what does frustrate me is perhaps that the protesters weren't very well equipped to try and frustrate attempts to frustrate them.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, it was kind of, I mean, the thing about the G7 protest was it was a very mixed bag there wasn't, I mean,
Many different causes, some of
yeah,
them
many different causes.
contradictory.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think on that day at the Calgary March, there was more sort of, I guess you could say, message discipline and coherence It was a bit different in Banff, much smaller event, organized by someone who was sort of brand new
Yeah, I know you
to
mentioned in your
organizing.
piece the organizer accidentally let Falun Gong speak because they didn't know that they were a cult.
Yeah, and I felt kind of bad including that because I know it wasn't
Yeah,
like the guy just didn't
I
know.
I feel bad
And you
too, and like I am glad you included that context because like obviously like you like they a lot of people do not know these things. Like they do portray themselves as a normal religious movement, and it's a day that's bringing a lot of different causes together. So I get how those things slip in. It's unfortunate, especially for message discipline, but I get it. Like I don't want a needle on it. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, but
um
but yeah, it's
you
like
go ahead.
I get what you mean. It like obviously like they're like I respect anyone who goes out and protests, especially for causes I'm sympathetic to. I am starting to get frustrated with how Canadians are admittedly a bit meek in the fashion that we protest. Like you don't see much of like the French style of protest where there's just fires in the background. Eh, and
Mhm.
and I mean I get that it's like very easy for me to sit here and say be more aggressive when there's police like watching you, but the unfortunate reality of protests is that they do need to maintain like a certain level of like energy in order to not be ignorable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it was an interesting piece you wrote on the G7 protest, especially because it was such a weird time. You had Modi coming in and Carney saying that him trying to get Jagmeet Singh off isn't a problem, which is in itself a complete degeneration of our democratic system. But the other piece of yours you wrote recently I wanted to write about was about different public demonstrations. A Canada Day event hosted by separatists in Alberta. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about that one.
Yeah, I mean that was an interesting one. I actually found out thanks to the Twitter feed of Jason Kenney, um, who mocked the separatist group for needing a to bring in a German far right politician to support their cause, because they couldn't find any mainstream Canadian politicians to do
And
so.
by German far right
Um,
politician, you mean that woman, Christian Anderson, like the member of the AFD, which are essentially the neo Nazi party of Germany.
yeah, I mean some have called them Nazis, not me. I would never. But they do seem to have some disturbing views on Muslims and transgender people that,
In her
would
speech
stand
at
up.
the Canada Day event, didn't she talk about like people puppeting from behind the shadows?
Oh, she sure did. And she
Yeah.
said she doesn't know who these people are, right? Which is, a good way
Well, as a
for
Jew,
people.
it's always relaxing and reassuring when Germans start talking about the secret puppet masters who control everything that they need to solve and get rid of.
Well, there's that. And she also spoke of the values our parents and grandparents fought for. And I'm like, you are a German woman who was probably born, you know,
Yeah,
in the
your
60s,
grandparents fought for the
70s.
wrong values.
Yeah. So maybe don't talk about, maybe say your values, which also would be
She's
stupid.
given a
But I
speech
mean,
she gives to Southerners in the United States for their Confederate relatives.
yeah, I mean, she was actually quite frightening. I mean, mind you, she is a member of the European Parliament, which means she has no power,
Yeah.
really. She's kind of just there to make a point about how she doesn't like the EU. Um,
So like the
Um,
same shtick as being a Bloc MP or like being a Sinn Féin MP in the UK. It's
well,
like
I think those MPs probably have more power.
they have more
Um,
power and also they're far less bigoted than the AFD. Like
yeah,
not even not even comparable.
yeah. Anyways, bottom of the barrel. Maxime Bernier was there. Who I mean was a mainstream politician.
Once upon a
As
time.
like a decade ago. Famously, when he was global affairs minister, left behind some important government documents at his biker girlfriend's place,
His
which is,
Hell's Angels biker girlfriend's place.
yeah, as one does.
I mean,
Uh,
whomst amongst us has not dated a member of the Hells Angels while being a politician?
yeah, and left and not, had a clear separation between their personal and public life. Um,
That admittedly is most politicians don't have a clear separation.
yeah, and there was also Cameron Davies, who used to be a UCP guy who was implicated in Jeff Callaway's sort of fake UCP leadership campaign in
He's
2017,
the leader
where
of the Republican Party of Alberta, right?
yeah, so now he's a
Is
separatist.
did I saw that promo video or whatever. Is it true he used to be an American Marine?
I am not aware of that. That's kind of crazy if it's true. It does say in his Twitter bio, proud patriot, Marine, and Republican Party of Alberta.
I'm
Um,
googling this quickly while we're talking. Uh, but yeah, like I mean, he puts Marine in his bio, and we don't have Marines in Canada.
yeah, he served in the U.S. Marine Corps,
So,
according to
an
his bio.
American citizen has come to Canada and has launched an independence movement with, vague overtures towards 51st statism called the Republican Party. And no one's
Yeah, and I
eyebrow
mean,
is raising at this one and going, hmm.
yeah, it's interesting because there does seem to be different strains within the separatist movement.
Right. You
Uh,
talk about, like, that's the one strain is the 51st state option, but the other strain
yeah, which is a
is
relatively new strain.
yeah, but the other strain is the more like the Western separation, where they drag along British Columbia and Saskatchewan and maybe Manitoba somehow, despite the idea being far more unpopular in those places than it already is unpopular in Alberta.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, there's I mean, Alberta separatism is sort of, it goes back quite a ways, but really, I mean, it was in the 1980s after Pierre Elliott Trudeau did the National Energy Program, um, where a separatist was actually elected in a riding called Didsbury Three Hills, like rural central Alberta. A guy named Doug Christie with the Western Canadian Concept Party. This guy was a lawyer who defended, all the worst guys, James Keekstra, Ernest Zundel, that type of guy. Um, and he was in the legislature for a year, right? He won a by-election and then lost to a conservative in the next provincial election. And so there was a by-election recently here in the now the riding is Old Didsbury Three Hills, so it's a bit bigger geographically. Um, And Cameron Davies ran for the Republican Party of Alberta, and of course the UCP won it. I mean, that wasn't in doubt. But I thought, and many other people who follow these things closely thought the separatists would come in like a distant second. But actually, the NDP got more votes than the Republican Party of Alberta,
which is
uh,
impressive for that riding.
yeah, I mean, the UCP got like I don't know, like
Yeah, like obviously,
s-
like the Tories dominated in that race, but the fact that like in such a riding where previously a separatist could win and now they can't even come above the NDP in the vote count, that does say a lot about actual appeal of the idea.
mhm. Yeah. So there isn't a lot of uh, um, mainstream support for the Republicans per se, but I think that's because the UCP have essentially, um, with the exception of the most uh, hardcore, um, diehard separatists. I mean, the UCP are appealing to them by, doing the sort of classic sleazy reform party tactic where it's just like, let's just have referendums on, whatever people want.
That, but also
And
they're doing the sort of Bloc Québécois, Party Québécois thing where they're just like, we don't necessarily need to separate now. We just need a lot more autonomy, and however much autonomy you give us still won't be good enough.
yeah, and I mean that's what Bernier at the rally was saying.
And it's like, it's a strategy that
That
works. I don't like
like
it, but
it's
it
why you
works.
should vote. And he's like, you need to vote for separation because if there's just a slim majority, opposed, you're not going to get anything, right? He was like, in Quebec, 49% voted in favor, and they got nothing out of it. Which, I mean, fact check on that.
Yeah.
But he's basically saying it will be fine. Just vote in favor of separation, and then you can do whatever you want, including getting what you want from the Canadian government.
Hmm.
Um,
And I mean,
and
I honestly, I don't, I hate it again, like I said, but like, I get why, like, sovereigntists and autonomists and regionalists and independence movements across Canada try this strategy. It works very well for Quebec. But also Quebec, I think, just holds a more central place in our politics, just both economically and politically in terms of actual representation in the House of Commons. I don't know that Alberta can necessarily pull off a similar place successfully.
Mhm.
Like, do we really think
Yeah,
Alberta will get to control immigration the way that Quebec does? No.
but I mean, the people at this event, again, the people who decide to spend Canada Day not doing normal Canada Day things, like going to a park or
Yeah.
camping or
Watching a fireworks show, like eating a
yeah,
hot dog, like anything normal.
yeah. I mean, these are the people. I mean, a lot of them. I mean, I spoke to some who weren't so sure, but most of the people there were like, yes, we need to separate. Things will be better if we separate. And that, speaking to some people like Benita Peterson, who used to be with, Take Back Alberta, which sort of was instrumental in bringing Danielle Smith to power. She was just like, enough of these referendums and these panels. Like, just do it. Just not necessarily separate, but like create a provincial police force, which actually that day the province announced it's just going to do. Which I mean, there's merit to that because our CMP contracts are ending. Ontario and Quebec have them. It's not, that's like sort of
And
the
also
least,
the RCMP seem to have actual trouble doing their basic job without getting impersonated by someone going on a mass shooting spree.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting details to that story. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure an Alberta police force would not be an improvement in
Yeah,
the slightest.
I don't know
It's
that
like, in
giving
itself, that's not
in
like
itself,
that's
it's not a terrible idea, but then when you think about Danielle Smith, who's talking about independence and is like, I want a group of armed men specifically under my control and not the federal government, and then the referendum starts to become a bit more scary.
Yeah, and also, I mean, things like the pension plan, like
Yeah.
that's actually like a really bad idea.
And it's unpopular.
It's unpopular because, again, like,
they hid the
seniors
poll showing that, but it's unpopular.
Yeah, well, they tried to, but Matthew Black at the Edmonton Journal, fought and finally got a copy of those results. But now they're doing this Alberta Next panel that Danielle Smith is chairing, with a bunch of wackadoodles, and also Trevor Toome, who's an economist at University of Calgary, who's like mainstream and like respectable. Obviously, he's I would say politically he's definitely right of center, but like he's not like he's not an Alberta firster.
A center-right economist from the University of Calgary? I am shocked.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are further
not that shocked
economists there, but and yeah, I'm actually going tomorrow to their panel in Red Deer. Someone snagged an extra ticket, so they're going to drive me down, and I'm going to see what craziness goes on there. But they're talking about a pension plan. They're talking about like limiting immigration to Alberta, right? These sorts of very dangerous policy ideas that Smith is very talented as sort of presenting as this like moderate and middle ground,
right,
between normal people.
It's like if you talk about terrible things in a calm and soothing voice, then centrists will call you reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, in Alberta, I think most of the centrists are, lined up behind the NDP.
Yeah, relative center.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple UCP, former UCP MLAs who like quit and were staying as independents, who were trying to revive the PCs, which is what the NDP in Alberta is essentially.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit left of that, but
and we'll see how it works for Mr. Nenshi.
Yeah. I mean, now he at least has a seat, so we'll see once the legislature is back in session.
But yeah, a lot of fun stuff happening in Alberta, and hopefully, something interesting will happen at that Red Deer thing, and we'll be able to read your reporting on that too.
Yeah. Hopefully, I suspect.
Well, hopefully something interesting in a good way, and not interesting in a bad way.
Well.
Yeah. It's like, the things I'm writing about are terrible, but my ratings have never been better.
Yeah. I mean, that is the dilemma when you're in media. Even including independent media. I mean, that's not something that really. It's just the way that you can talk about these things is less constrained than if you're the CBC, and it's like, hey, why don't we pay a guy who's at the Q blockade to write an op-ed for us? That'd be a great idea. And which is a thing the CBC did for
for folks at home who didn't get, that's the thing that actually happened. Not good. Well, folks, don't go anywhere. We will be back shortly after the break with our 3 headline topics of the week and our guest, Jeremy Appel. See you in a sec. Today's episode of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau is brought to you by me. Folks, all of my work is available for free with no paywall at jakelandau.ca. But in order to keep writing and recording, I need money, because money is what makes this show go round. So, if you enjoy my content or find it informative, please consider a paid subscription at jakelandau.ca/subscribe. And please leave a 5-star rating on the show in your favorite podcast app, be it Apple, Spotify, or a secret third thing. Thank you, and enjoy the show. And we are back from the break with our 3 headline topics of the week, 2 mostly national ones and then 1 mostly local one. You folks know the rhythm and the formula by now. So, going along with our first headline topic, something totally fine and not concerning at all. A bail date, a date for a bail hearing has been set for 3 Canadian Forces members facing terrorism-related charges and firearms offenses after siphoning off prohibited military equipment in an attempt to form a militia to take and seize land in the Quebec City area using violent force. The RCMP said searches conducted in the Quebec City area led to the seizure of 16 explosive devices, 83 firearms and accessories, 11,000 rounds of ammunition of various calibers, nearly 130 magazines, 4 pairs of night vision goggles, and other assorted fun military equipment, which I'm sure would never be used for nefarious purposes. And they appear to have been motivated by right-wing extremist cause. You know this because if it was a left-wing extremist cause, everyone would be talking about it a lot more. But also, there aren't really any left-wing extremists in the Canadian military because there aren't really any left-wingers in the Canadian military. Jeremy, do you think that men who are accused of attempting to start an armed insurrection using their military training and equipment should be able to receive bail?
Well, I think there are a lot of factors that would go into that decision. I'm not a lawyer, but I would say unless there was some compelling reason to trust them, that no, they probably shouldn't have bail.
Yeah, so I mean, like, obviously they're entitled to a fair bail hearing, but like, yeah,
the particularly violent crimes they're accused of plotting, you'd think that would be reason to deny them bail. But of course, they have lawyers who would probably argue that they've never been in trouble with the law before, that they're valuable contributors to society as members of the military, and that they're not flight risk. Right. And I mean, it gets tricky with these things, right? Because there's like this constant like right-wing narrative that, our justice system is way too lax.
Right. It's like all the bullshit about how we need bail reform and how we need to make it harder to get bail. And you're right, it does make it harder in these situations where people are accused of, and there's a lot of fair evidence of something truly fucking insane.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, our bail system is based on the presumption of innocence, right. But also you do have to weigh that against what these guys are being accused of, and also you can present some of the evidence you have in the bail hearing to demonstrate the danger that may be posed. That's part of the whole progress. It is due process, and they're right. They're entitled to a bail hearing, and I see one of the 4th men, who was only appears to be charged with weapons possession and not the bigger charges, was released on bail on Monday on a $40,000 bond last week. And he agreed to conditions that include wearing an ankle bracelet and possessing no weapons. And he will next be in court on September 12th.
And I mean, there were a few problems here. For one, that's a long time for the court date. I know these are just the normal delays you have now in court, but it kind of shows the problem the federal government has just not creating enough judges and courtrooms and prosecutors and also public defenders to actually allow these cases to go through in a timely manner. But the other way is like, yes, he's agreed to conditions that include possessing no weapons, but you won't know if he's broken that condition until it's too late, because the ankle bracelet doesn't help you if he just, you get what I mean. Like, I am very, very concerned about the fact that we're not taking this seriously at all. And this, again, like, by all appearances, this seems like an attempt for an armed insurrection and like a breakaway region. And that, and if the people who were doing this weren't like the kind of like typical like stereotypical like Canadian military guy, like there would be a lot more scrutiny on this.
Yeah, and I would just add to that it's a good thing that we're giving all this money to the military over the next decade.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jeremy, for stealing my no prize question of the week. But yeah, that pretty much, like, should we actually be increasing the amount of money we give to the military when they can't stop equipment from being siphoned away from like rebel terrorist breakaway cells, allegedly?
Well, I guess they would argue that no, they need more money so they can prevent that in the future, right?
Right. It's the same thing the cops do every year in Toronto. They're like, give us more money so that we can say next year you didn't give us enough money, even though you gave us exactly the dollar amount we requested without haggling. Like and like again, like I'm a war hawk. Like, I mean, like, I don't seek out war, but I do think Canada should have a strong military that allows us to at least put up a credible deterrence against countries like the Yankee entity to our south. But I don't think that our military is going to be the people necessarily to do that, because if anything, a lot of them seem ideologically sympathetic to the same people that are threatening our country.
Yeah, I think there's a song about that.
Yeah. God, it's not a fun time to be Canadian. Because this does really harken back. Like, I think Canadians just aren't used to like the time in Canadian history decades back where like armed insurrectionist movements were like a more common thing. Like, I think people forget when like a British diplomat got like kidnapped and murdered. Yeah. I mean, it was 1970, so like I know 55 years ago may be a bit of time ago, but like it also like it's like it really depends on your generation, because like the idea that like similar things could happen in Quebec again, that political violence could be engaged by people with specific goals and then it just escalate and I mean, you're also like concerned about different things too. You're concerned about like a Waco, Texas situation. Like the kind of people who would do this are not right in the head.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a story I just wanted to bring up for everyone at home to keep an eye on, because when the federal government accuses people again of siphoning off military equipment for a plot to form a militia and seize land, I think this is something that shouldn't just disappear into the headlines, but that would just be me. Moving on to our second topic of the day, from the wonderful land of Alberta yet again. Alberta's school library book ban is proving an effective distraction, according to an opinion piece by Trevor Harrison at the Edmonton Journal. And what Trevor puts forward in this piece is that Alberta's new regulations or laws that will allow them to restrict the books available in school libraries is them using social conservatism as a distraction from the material problems that Danielle Smith's government has being a government. And I mean, distraction, I guess, is it's a weird word here, because on the one hand, I get what he means, but on the other hand, for the queer people being targeted by various things, I don't know that it feels like a distraction. It feels more like the hill you gotta die on if you want to live. But I do get the point. It's like that it is essentially repeated red meat that she throws to her social conservative base. And yeah, it what are you, I mean, what do you think about Alberta's book ban? Because for me, it kind of just harkens back to the sort of thing you've been seeing like for decades, like from social conservative movements. And I know at one point, I think Preston Manning's father, Ernest Manning or whatever, like at one point he was trying to limit what books could be sold in Alberta.
I wasn't aware of that, but the Social Credit Party was certainly uh, quite authoritarian. And I know Ernest Manning's predecessor, William Aberhart, did pass a law stating that when newspapers were critical of the government, they had to print rebuttal from the government. So that, I mean, wouldn't be entirely out of character, but
Yeah,
I'm
the Trevor's piece for the Journal actually does mention this. Like, you're right. Like the social credits really did put in like various censorship proposals and policies from the 35 to 71. But in 1954, it was Ernest Manning as premier. His government created the Advisory Board on Objectionable Publications that worked to monitor and restrict the sale and distribution of reading materials in the province. So yeah, it's not a new idea in Alberta, and like that, I wanted to point out the Canadian example because I don't want people saying, "Oh, this is like those Americans," and I'm like, no, no, we have a sordid history of doing that here too. We don't need to blame anyone else for our problems. But yeah, I mean, Jeremy, as a journalist, I feel you probably are opposed to book bans.
Yeah, I would say I'm against banning books, including books that I dislike.
Yeah,
I think it's probably one of my more liberal views that we shouldn't be in the business of um, deciding what books people can or can't
right.
read.
You can criticize the book, you can say you don't like things that are in the book, but you can't stop people from reading books.
Right. Now that doesn't mean if I'm over at someone's house and I see some shitty books on their bookshelf, I'm not going to judge them.
Oh yeah, it's like
But
if you have a copy of Mein Kampf on your bookshelf, I am going to be very fucking suspicious. But like it's different to have it available in a library because such a thing is, an important historical document. I would hope the edition would have commentary for obvious reasons, but like you get the idea.
yeah, and I mean Trevor Harrison, I know him fairly well. He's a recently retired sociologist down at the University of Lethbridge, who wrote one of the definitive books on the Reform Party called "Of Passionate Intensity."
Hmm.
That I would recommend to listeners if they're interested in that.
I will be adding that to my Kobo.
Yeah, Canadian history. It's hard to find though. You might have to. I don't think there is an ebook of it. Like it's out of print. I found it at like I think I found it used online somewhere, but anyways, um, um, and I get what he's saying, that this is a distraction, in that, by talking about it, we're taking the bait, but it's also a distraction that has very, real consequences, for queer kids in school,
Right.
say, who
Yeah.
come October won't be able to access books that would help them understand sort of, what they're experiencing, particularly those who come from households that aren't as accepting
Yeah.
as some.
Right.
And the government has, it's quite consistent with the government's anti-trans policies,
Right. It's like step
of
one, you ban books you deem explicit. Step two, you define gay and trans people as explicit. Step three, we are now erased from public society.
yeah, well, it's interesting because the step they took before was requiring that teachers notify parents when kids want to change their pronouns or names to reflect their gender identity. Danielle Smith, I'm pointing out apropos of nothing, was actually born Marlena Danielle Smith, and chooses to go by Danielle. Um, you know, just throwing that
Yeah,
out there.
yeah, and that's
But
completely fair. And like, if she gets to choose what name she goes by, so should everyone else. But the bigger debate, I think what it all comes down to is parents who feel that their children are young people that they are trying to guide, and parents who feel that their children are property they have a right to control.
mhm,
And I
yeah,
I obviously lean on this, like, listen, obviously, like, you can't have full anarchy in a household. A parent does need to be a parent, but you also need to let your kids grow up. You need to, like, I just saw the Superman movie the other day, and one of my favorite things in the movie is when Clark Kent's father is just telling him that it's not for his adoptive parents or for his birth parents to tell him who he is. It's for them to give him the space to make his own mistakes and find out who he wants to be. And like it, like obviously it's, like, pretty typical, like, Hollywood, like, blockbuster fare, but it is a nice sentiment, like, especially where this does feel to be under threat, the idea that children are, people with the right to access information even if their parents don't necessarily want them to access it. Like, when you talk about things like sex education, I was 6 years old when I found out where babies come from because my parents just gave me a book explaining it. It was age appropriate. It was a flip, like, picture book, but it explained this is what sex is. This is what a sperm is. And I would like to think I ended up pretty all right. Like, the jury may be out
yeah,
on how all right, but like, just because something necessarily contains even an explicit topic doesn't mean it might not necessarily be. It might still be fully appropriate for a child because it might be addressing that topic in a way to explain it to a kid when it's necessary to explain.
yeah, and I think it's worth noting. Obviously, school libraries aren't obligated to carry, every book. There's limited
Right.
space, but those decisions about curation should be the purview of schools and school boards.
And trained
And
I watch a old sitcom, The Facts of Life, on CHCH. It's a local independent television station in Hamilton, and rerunning old sitcoms is essentially just half of their schedule. And there was an episode, and the show's set in the 80s and filmed then too, and Mrs. Garrett is talking about, like, how parents are trying to overrule trained librarians, and it's parents who don't know anything about books or what books they're complaining about. And we really have been dealing with the same problem over and over and over, like, because the debate never dies. There are just some people who will always think they have a right to control what other people watch and listen to and read.
yeah, and another thing, I think it's worth noting is that the government claimed that they were approached by these concerned parents who were like appalled by these graphic novels that were in their kids' school libraries. Well, turned out that they actually weren't approached by uh, parents with kids in school. They were approached by two social conservative, anti 2S LGBTQ plus organizations that were boasting about the fact that the government was doing what they asked them to online. And then it turned out, and we know both these things thanks to Brett McKay, the local journalism initiative, at the Investigative Journalism Foundation, that the government, which claims it's not banning books at all, but just putting in guardrails, actually looked through a couple databases, the first being PEN America's database of books that are commonly banned in schools, which that organization poses, and Moms for Liberty resource sort of rating books that appear in school libraries about how urgently they think it needs to be banned to inform their criteria. So this is, I mean, Danielle Smith is someone who's obsessed with, I think, U.S. Culture war and the far right media ecosystem there. I mean, she went to fundraise for PragerU in Florida a few months ago. She's been on Breitbart where she bragged about
She and
how
Kevin O'Leary went to have drinks with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Well, eat.
yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know if he drinks, but maybe they drink.
yeah, I mean, she's the closest thing Canada has to like a MAGA uh, leader.
And the only reason she can't call herself Republican is because someone just squatted the name in Alberta.
Yeah, yeah. But so yeah, I mean, she's following, and I mean, Alberta has often, not because the population is more religious than elsewhere in Canada, because it's actually not, but because the religious right holds such sway in Alberta politics, um, has often been, ahead of, or I guess you could say behind the curve, um, in terms of,
Social progressivism.
fine opposing gay marriage, for example, which she, folded like a cheap suit.
I remember in the
After,
early 2000s, they tried to use the notwithstanding clause in Alberta to ban gay marriage. And the only reason it failed is because the courts ruled that marriage was a federal jurisdiction, so they couldn't pass that law. But the federal government could have if they wanted to. And thank God they didn't. And hopefully they never do.
yeah, for sure. I, you know, I, it's interesting because that debate settled, like, and someone like Danielle Smith, a decade ago, made a big show of how she's a supporter of gay rights, that she thinks gays should have the same rights as everyone, but also thought that like homophobic evangelical pastors should also have a right to run for office under her party, and seeing, how I think we've regressed on 2S LGBTQ plus rights over the past decade, and now she is leading the charge with anti-trans legislation, um, but is doing it in a way that, again, she's very good at making her policy seem like this prudent middle ground between extremes. I mean, her party at its last convention voted overwhelmingly in support of motions to ban trans women from, female spaces, to make it under the NDP. They made it so you don't have to put your gender on government documents, and you can put X if it's if you're non-binary or gender fluid, or just don't feel like disclosing your gender. And they voted to get rid of that, and they voted to defund gender affirming care, which they portrayed as this, just luxurious cosmetic surgery that people want to get.
And not
so
what
Smith
keeps people alive. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And so Smith can say, well, look, these people want to go even further. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I'm putting in these measures to protect children who I really care about. And the video when she announced these anti-trans policies, was like, to all people struggling with their gender in Alberta, I care about you and I love you. And
Yeah, it's
here's
like,
why I'm going to make your life more difficult. And she's very masterful at
yeah,
doing
speaking softly while holding a knife behind your back. Like,
yeah.
It's and that really is ultimately the thing in Alberta here. It's social conservatives talking about what's best for the children while ignoring the children screaming that they're hurting them.
Yeah.
Fun. Anyways, moving to our final topic of the day, in an even more depressing topic, God help us. The health minister in British Columbia, Josie Osborne of the BC NDP, says there will be no change to the expert committee's decision to stop paying for a 3-year-old girl's medication for her rare and terminal disease that keeps her symptoms from progressing and gives her a higher quality of life and allows her and her parents to enjoy what little time she may have. She was diagnosed with CLN2 disease in mid-May after suffering her first seizure 8 months ago. And it's an extremely rare disease. The medication for it, Brineura, costs about $1 million a year, and how it works is it's a fluid injection of enzymes into the brain, an infusion that slows the progression of symptoms. However, what the government of British Columbia has said, first through the standard denial, and then there was public controversy, and now the health minister has said she is declining it again. And they're saying that once a patient's symptoms have gone to a certain point, the medication no longer slows the progression of the disease. And it's a very weird argument to make, because the whole argument for using this medication, this breakout therapy, is that it works to slow the progression of the disease. Like, it works to address people who are already symptomatic. So it's extremely frustrating. Like, I mean, frustrating isn't the right word for it. If you're that girl's parents, you are enraged beyond any manner of belief, because you're being told that public health care, or so-called public health care, will not take care of your child. And what really gets me, Jeremy, is that the minister says that there are some people who are fundraising for them, and she says that she has been made aware of funds that have been raised independently that could be used to purchase the drug privately. And I'm like, oh, so it isn't that you don't think the drug doesn't work, you just don't want to pay for it, but you're happy to make a fucking, like, pizzeria in downtown Victoria fundraise for this girl so you can do, like, GoFundMes and begging on the street for medication, despite the fact that we claim we're better than America because we supposedly don't do that. Jeremy, did you think that the BC NDP would be the first ones to blatantly pay private healthcare to Canada?
Well, I mean, certainly aren't the first government, and won't be the last. I mean, there's more holes in the Canada Health Act than Swiss cheese, right? And I mean, there are clinics in BC, in Ontario, in Alberta where you pay a fee to get expedited healthcare, and no one's willing to do anything about it. I mean, the CBC had a pretty good investigation into that several years ago. There was a big controversy in Calgary a few years ago because one clinic sent out a notice to its patients saying that it was moving to this fee model, and that was stopped in its tracks. And Trudeau actually threatened to withhold funding if that was allowed to proceed, and it wasn't. But clinics that do that as a regular practice exist all over Canada. And I mean, of course, surgeries, your province as well as mine are just contracting out, as many procedures as they can to the private sector. And in the case of Alberta, allegedly doing so to benefit some well-connected individuals. But with that said, that is disturbing. That here's a medication that costs $1 million. Now, well, I was disappointed about the was it Canadian Press piece or CBC piece you sent me? I don't have it right in front of
CBC
me.
piece.
It was, I know it was on the CBC's website, but I think it might have been a CP Wire story. But that there was
Oh, yeah, it
no
is a Canadian press piece. It
yeah,
was from Mike MacArthur.
there's no apparent attempt to figure out why does this medication cost $1 million. Like, yeah, I get it's a rare condition, but why does it cost $1 million? Like, that's insane.
Right.
Like, and and of course in Canada,
A million per year. So I don't know how many doses that gets you per year, but it's $1 million for a year's worth of your disease progression being slowed down.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean, like, I do get why some medications are priced very highly, and like, not in a thing that I think anyone should ever have to pay for medication themselves, but in the sense that they're like, well, this is a very rare disease and we're not going to have many patients. We can charge for the medication. So in order to get research and development costs back, you have to, like, I'm sure that's some argument that some business suit made in a boardroom, but like, nonetheless, like, they're like, you expect governments to subsidize some of these research and development costs and in exchange get a lower costed medication. You expect governments to negotiate down the prices of medication in general, even if they did genuinely have a lot of research and development costs go into them. But like, at a certain point, like, the cost of this medication should not be this family's problem. Like, the whole point of us paying taxes into our healthcare system, we know some people will be sicker than other people. Some people have different challenges. The idea is those of us who will be healthier and who won't need healthcare as much during our time alive, we know we're paying out a bit, but it's so that people who aren't as healthy as we are can live long and happy lives the same way we do. It's about equality. It's about fairness. It's about basic humanity that politicians no longer seem to have, if they ever did.
Yeah, and I mean, I would underscore that this highlights the need for single payer pharmacare.
You don't want to have to beg for your child's life. No one should ever have to do that. Yeah, it's just it's frustrating. Like, I am, and I guess all I can say on this podcast is that I hope, like Shirley Pollock and her family, I hope that something is able to work out for them. I hope that enough pressure happens that Minister Osborne understands this is an unacceptable decision to make, I am worried that will not happen. I am worried that something... we know what happens when you don't get a medication for your terminal disease. And what will enrage me is the idea that after they would call it a tragedy, when it wasn't a tragedy. It was entirely their fault.
Yeah, it was a policy decision,
yeah.
or the product of a series of policy decisions.
I guess it's not killing people if you do it from behind paperwork.
Doesn't BC have some form of pharmacare?
I mean, I would assume they have some form, I guess, on the basis that the medication has been covered for some people. I'm not entirely sure. What I do know is that depending on where the medication is administered, it may just be under not like if it's administered in a hospital, then you wouldn't pay for it. And considering it's an infusion into the brain, I assume they aren't administering it themselves at home. But I know BC does have some sort of pharmacare plan. I know they signed an agreement with the federal government. But it's really not expansive. I think it might just be I think there's some drugs, in addition to what the federal government covers, I think there's also some coverage for prosthetics, which is nice, but it's also based on income and not there's a lot of problems here. I would just like plain basic single-payer universal healthcare without a ton of asterisks that result in a ton of dead bodies. Is that so much to ask for?
In this economy?
Yeah, I knew when I said it was too much. I should apologize to Cut Cost Carney for trying to raise the quality of people's lives with the tax dollars of rich people. We should cut more corners.
No, we've got to what, keep our fiscal powder dry. Isn't that what Freeland says?
Yeah. Spend less on dying children so we can invest more in rich pricks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is a fun note to end on, a nice and light thing that isn't depressing at all. Jeremy, thank you once again for coming on our program. It has been an absolute pleasure. Jeremy Appel, everybody. You can read his work at readtheorchard.org and subscribe there. And also, I haven't mentioned it in a while, but you got to read his book about Jason Kenney, Kennyism, which is a great read and one of the first books I read on my e-reader, and it's great. So, Jeremy, thanks again for joining the program. I have no doubt we will have you back again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, as always. I didn't know I was one of the first books you had on your e-reader. It's quite the honor. And yeah, I'm working on a sequel of sorts. Don't ask how it's going.
It's ready when it's ready.
Well, yeah, or it's ready when it's ready, or by the end of January when it has to be ready. So,
well, that too. We do like our deadlines.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's hard to motivate with the deadline so far away, but I certainly, was a bit traumatized by having to work, like 13 hours a day, 7 days a week to write the Kenny book. So,
yeah. Well, when it does come out, I know I will be one of the first people reading it. Thank you once again for Jeremy Appel from readingtheorchard.org. And that'll do it for this week's episode, folks, but don't you worry, we will be back next Sunday with another great guest on our amazing podcast, which you should all subscribe to if you haven't already. Thank you, and have a good night. This is the end of the show. Bye.